Hi everyone, and welcome to one more Ultra podcast episode, Football 101 Talks. My name is Marko Matushinsky, and today with us we have a special guest, Paul Biondich. Paul, hi, and thank you for being here.
Marco, it's a big pleasure and honor, and hello to all the people watching on this podcast. Honor to be here.
We met on a few different occasions, online, WhatsApp, but also we were together at the Sunset Conference, and I really enjoyed your presentation, and this was one of the reasons that I wanted to talk with you about to do this podcast episodes. And I know that a lot of my friends and coaches who were listening to your presentation, they were amazed with the way how you present it. And I know that all of the listeners will enjoy listening to this episode as I will be. And well, before we start, I will shortly introduce yourself. Uh, I will shortly introduce you, but I will leave also this part to you. And just few things. You are a high performance sport nutritionist coach, chiropractor with a 26 years of career working with Major League Soccer, Major League Basketball, UFC champion, Stipe Miocic. We all know who that man is. And I can scroll now for like 1 to 2 minutes about the whole career, but I will leave this part to you. It's amazing. Yeah, tell us more about yourself.
Thank you, Marco. I'm a chiropractor by trade, but my passion is high performance sports nutrition. So I've been in that space 26 years, working with Major League Soccer players, UFC fighters for the last 22 years, including 13 years with Stipe Miocic, longest reigning heavyweight champion in history. Worked with pretty much, almost every sport, athletes from every sport in the Canadian national team. My background is I'm born in Toronto, Canada. My parents are born in Croatia. So I'm first generation. Worked with Major League Baseball, just a variety of sports and professional athletes in the career. So it's a deep passion of mine, and studying um, supplements globally. So my athletes are global. So I have to know what, in the sports nutrition world, not just what's in Canada, United States, but what's working in Germany, Europe,
That's it.
Australia, New
Yeah.
Zealand. So it's a global, concept. And so my passion is to understand the supplements that work globally.
And how this passion started, about the supplementation and nutrition, the journey to sport nutrition. And also you mentioned like working with individual athletes, but also team sports, how you ended in in both worlds.
Yes. So at the end of the day, when you work when you work with professional athletes don't really care on the theory why it works. Okay, they just want to know, does it work? Can you make the athlete faster, stronger, recover quicker? These are measurable metrics. Okay, I'm in the metric business. I move metrics. Okay, so an athlete, you put a program together, whether it's nutrition based or more supplement based. I am more of a supplement expert. Nutrition is, getting to be more standardized these days. There are nuances in timing, but in the supplement industry, it's very, very, very challenging, very difficult, because you have to get into the clinical research. Does the clinical research actually apply to the real world when you apply it? 95% of the time, it's no. And my job is to figure out why, and then find out the rate limiting steps in what is stopping that athlete from running faster, recovering quicker, whatever the thing is. So when you get that formula down, and when you understand the rate limiting steps, and you understand a program that can change an athlete's performance, that's the most important thing. Is, can you change the athlete's performance? Can you improve it? And when the answer is yes, the athletes don't care what it is. They just say, hey coach, tell me what to do, tell me how to take it. They follow the program, and then the results are phenomenal. And they have to be reproducible. It can't be just, this is a one-off for this individual athlete. It has to be reproducible. And there are nuances, obviously body weight and timing of different things. But when you land that protocol, it's spectacular. I mean, it's game changing. You're breaking world records, you're breaking personal bests, you're breaking team performances. This is groundbreaking stuff, and it's time for athletes and teams to adopt this strategy, because if you have a team that's adopting a strategy like this and one team that's not, the team that's not is done. They're going to get run over in the game, whether it's a soccer,
Yeah.
hockey, basketball, doesn't matter. So this is the modernization of basically sports supplements to translate into improving performance.
And you said it's a metric business and we need to measure it. Well, if we want to improve something, we need to measure it. If like you said, and I totally agree with you, and this is where the whole sports science and strength conditioning part is going. But I think that also we can benefit from these things. And I know that in team sports, I'm coming from football mostly, and that here I think that we still can raise a bar when it comes to supplementation and those strategies. And I would like to stay more on measure it, and repeat it, like you said. And when it comes to testing, let's say, it's easy for us when we have a like a counter movement jump or sprinting. But when it comes to testing uh, in your department, what metrics or what procedures do you rely on?
Well, I mean, the simplest thing in the low-lying fruit is obviously timed events. Any athlete that's in a timed event, it's very simple. So I'll give you a simple example. So we had a 5K runner who competes in these races, and their racing races results are plus or minus 5 seconds on average. So they were 5 seconds slower, 5 seconds faster, typically per race, and that's been consistent with their training. So we put a program together for the athlete, and they implemented it, and they took 50 seconds off, their time, which is insane. Those are
Oh
ridiculous
yeah,
numbers. But that's how powerful supplementation can be if you're using efficacious things that work with the right timing and the right dosing. So that's the low-lying fruit stuff. And then of course there's more subjective things, like perceived exertion or recovery. How do you feel, right? So as a basic example, I mean it's a little biased because my son is a soccer player. He's a Division I NCAA soccer player in the U.S. And so, I put a program together. He's a wingback. So wingbacks are, as running constantly up and down the wing,
yeah,
the
sprinting, fancy movement, defensive movements. Yeah,
nonstop. So it's a very fatiguing and draining position to play. You have to be in exceptional shape, and you have to basically be able to not drop your power into the second half. Everybody is good in the first half. I'm not really interested in first half play. My concentration is in the back
in the
45
second
minutes.
half.
Second half is the most important thing. Can you excel in the second half? Can you destroy your competition in the second half? That's the games are won or lost in the second half. Okay, so that's a lot of my things are tuned for that. And the program I put his name is Philip on. He basically said to me, he said that he finished the 90-minute game. He's like, I can play another 40 minutes right now sprinting. No, I have no fatigue, zero. Okay, even beyond that is when he woke up in the next morning. He goes, I have no soreness. There's
Yeah,
no soreness. So now we're talking about not performance. Now we're talking optimized recovery. Now your recovery is you're ready to go, whether you're in UEFA Champions League, whatever the sport you're in, tournament plays, okay? If you can optimize recovery, then the team and the athlete and the individual is ready to perform at the highest level repeatedly over and over again. So in terms of answering your question, I mean the low-lying fruit is the simple metrics of timed events, and then perceived exertion, recovery, and performance post. And you can measure that through HRV, and there's different tools that Ultrax does, within your system, which is the best system for measuring metrics for an athlete. So that's
yeah. Thank
amazing.
you for that.
Absolutely. So those are on, and there's other testing. Now there's portable cortisol testing, hormonal testing that's easy to use, and you can start measuring an athlete's cortisol level. And then now we're looking at, okay, because we know overtraining is a serious component, and coaches have a difficult time measuring overtraining. Ultrax is getting very, very good at doing that and recognizing those things. So when a coach is using a system like Ultrax and seeing, hey, my athlete is starting to overtrain, right? These are signals of like, Do we back them down, or do we
Yeah,
implement nutritional supplementation to counter that? Or a combination of both, right? So
yeah.
there's many
This was
tools, and the ability to measure the tools are changing rapidly, and they're getting more advanced, which is bringing more data and more information to the coaches and to the athletes. And then, again, you need a platform to add those metrics and measuring tools
to
into it,
connect all of it. Yeah,
which is something, not to keep repeating this, but is something like what you guys have developed with Ultrax.
yeah. And still, the technologies are improving. And I will get back to portable cortisol measurements and the supplement that you used on a football match with your son. I will get back to this topic because it's quite interesting. But I want to ask you more about perceived exertion because it's a quite frequently asked question in team sports, and sometimes people like to use it, sometimes people don't. But now you mentioned me that you are still using it and that you rely on this metric. So do you like this kind of subjective metrics when it comes to measuring responses from your athletes?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you do subjective measuring, of course, when you measure once, the variability is high, right? But when you measure consistently, then the variability becomes very, very tight. Okay. So that's where the tool becomes very, I think, very powerful.
That's
Is
it,
is
yeah.
in the consistent measurement of that tool. And a one-off is a one-off, right? You can have a bad day, bad sleep, bad things going on at home. These things all happen that it can affect, performance
Of
and
course,
perceived
yeah.
exertion. But over the course of a season or consistently, you'll see it. It's very accurate.
Yeah, it's about just consistency. You need to continue using it, and the results will be more reliable, like you said. And uh, I will now go. I will leave this part of, let's say, supplementation maybe for later, if you agree with that. But I would like to know now to go to fueling for performance and recover. Let's call it like this. And I remember one of your slides on the presentation that you put like it was a sentence from one coach. I'm not quite sure which one, but it was like this is the last time we played a game without 72 hours of rest. And this is something that I wanted to talk with you because it's quite uh, it's a topic that is more quite studied in football. Should we rest 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours after a match? How we should periodize things. And from the nutrition standpoint, periodization in different phases, let's say preseason, competition, recovery. Is there Are there any differences between those phases? And how do you look at periodization of nutrition in a weekly setting or something like this?
Oh, that's a great question. So, I mean, I think it just matches physical demands. It's very simple, right? When the physical demand is up, the supplementation matches it, right? It only makes sense. Okay. So if you're training really, really hard, doing a lot of, weight training, sprinting, a lot of physical sprints, a lot of heavy taxing physical demands on the body, then for instance, the protein requirement is going to be much higher because the body's going to demand it, the muscle's going to require it, the recovery is going to demand it. Okay, if it's a light day and it's more calisthenics and technical, then obviously the body's not asking for that demand, right? So it's the supplementation follows, basically mimics the demands of the body and the intensity of the training. And so you can gauge that, up and down and match it. So periodization of training is the same thing as periodization of nutrition. The two should be matched. And I never see this. I see everybody just gets into a routine. They do the same thing every day, every morning, every afternoon, every evening, but there's no matching, right? And that allows you also to take a break, not just physically, but from a nutritional perspective. And then when your demand goes up, you match it. And I think that's very important. I don't see that, especially in the protein space. It's a weird thing. People are afraid of it, but there was an interesting study where they said, they gave athletes 100 grams of protein post training, right? So originally it was like you can only absorb 20 grams, you can only absorb 30
Yeah,
grams, and then
I
then it
remember
was
that.
then it was 40 grams, right? And then the study said, you know what, we're going to put these radioactive isotopes on every protein molecule. We're going to measure it. where do these where do these amino acids actually go? Okay. And so
Yeah.
obviously they put these athletes through a very vigorous, intense physical demand, and all 100 grams were absorbed and utilized. So it kind of it just breaks your brain to say, hey, you know what?
Well, yeah.
There is no limit, right? You have to match the nutrition to the training intensity. That's it. And then you're
And
going to maximize recovery, repair, and growth. Simple.
it I have one question about that. So let's say the amount of protein that you are taking after a training, does it depends, like you said, on a intensity of training session that you've done? Like is it a training session vigorous? Is it a medium sized? Something like this. So maybe if you are doing a quite hard session, let's say on a RPE scale, 7 to 9, you should take 100 grams of protein. Or if you are doing like it's just something that is popping right on my mind. Am I on a good direction with this, or
Yeah, absolutely. So the base, that people agree on, it's 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. Okay.
yeah,
That's the general, and it can go higher. It can go to 1.2, it can go to 1.5. There's studies that show that, more is better to a degree, on your daily requirements, right? So that's your basing, ballpark daily protein
baseline?
requirement, and then you can bump it up depending on the intensity and volume of training. And a very important point, and this has been thrown back and forth in terms of debate and contention, but it's my opinion, and from my experience, is and this has been stated in research, 2/3, okay, of all your repair, recovery, and growth comes in the first 6 hour window post training. Okay, I just want to repeat that. Okay, 2/3 of your repair, recovery, and growth comes in the first 6 hours post training. Okay. So in that first 6 hours, you have to be very conscious and deliberate in your recovery in terms of nutrition. Okay. So simple strategy is, whey protein. Why is whey protein so popular? Okay. It's very fast absorbing. The branched chain amino acids, leucine, isoleucine, and valine are very high, and that's what stimulates mTOR to maximize repair, recovery, and growth. Okay, so you get a bolus, say 30, 40 grams of whey protein right after your training with carbs, healthy fats. Boom, you start the repair, recovery, and growth very quickly. You maximize it, and then an hour and a half later, you're eating a whole nutrition, whole meat, protein-based food, chicken, steak, turkey, whatever it is. And now you have that slow, sustained release of proteins continuing for the next 3, 4 hours. And that's how you maximize both systems. You get the whey protein up very quickly, stimulate mTOR, and then the whole meat protein continues and that's how you maximize that 1 to 6 hour window.
Yeah,
Yes, protein synthesis happens over a 48-hour period. We know that, but if you see the curve, the maximum comes up and then it drops and slows down. So
yeah,
timing and being intentional and dosing is very important.
it's
Now, when
important.
the athlete does that, what happens? They wake up in the morning, they feel great, they're recovered, they're stronger, they're faster, and they're smarter.
And this is the whole point why we are doing this. We want them to see faster, stronger, and smarter in any occasion. But it totally makes sense. If you're doing a session, you need something that repairs you fast, and you need something like a long run to repair you like during the whole day. So when you think like that, yeah, it totally makes sense. Uh, and one one question about, again, I will back to the periodization cycle, like a weekly manipulating of those variables. Like I like the part that you mentioned with the protocol, like a portable cortisol levels and RP and food. Have you noticed the changes, like when the cortisol levels are up, the subjective grades are up, but the proteins level, like and the recovery are also lower. During the week, let's say of Major League Basketball or Major League Football team. Have you followed some patterns like this?
Definitely. So cortisol, as it's an important hormone. When you wake up in the morning, cortisol should be high, right? It stimulates blood sugars, wakes you up, and so that's very important. But we know any training post 45 minutes, especially intense training, will spike cortisol significantly. And cortisol is a destructive hormone. It impedes repair, recovery, and growth. It impedes muscle anabolism or building of muscle. It interferes with sleep. So, it is very, very, very important to manage cortisol for an athlete. And there's tools to do that. Obviously, there's subjective tools. How do you feel? But now there's portable, cortisol management testing. And we know that, there's also, natural herbs called adaptogens. Adaptogens are a group of herbs that can control cortisol or tamper or minimize the response. And these are the most important things, because typically what happens with an athlete who overtrains, cortisol starts to rise. And if cortisol is not controlled post-training, okay, when cortisol is high in the evening, what happens is it suppresses melatonin. And when melatonin is suppressed, obviously you can't sleep because that's your sleep hormone. And when melatonin is suppressed in the morning, your testosterone level is naturally low. Okay, so this is the circadian rhythm, the natural cycle of hormones. Okay, so if conversely, if you have a tool, strategic tools from a supplementation perspective that will tamper cortisol down, bring it down post-training, okay, that means melatonin will naturally be high.
Goes up. Yeah.
Goes up. That means you get into deep sleep recovery. That's where all your repair, recovery, and growth happens at night during sleep. And when you wake up in the morning, your testosterone level is high. And this is now when the athlete is now really starting to optimize. They're really, all the training, everything that's happening is really starting to come together, and they started to become very strong and very robust in the sport that they're playing. This is critical to not just for an individual, but the entire team. You can imagine now
Yeah.
the entire team locks into this rhythm. Yeah, you're a dangerous force. You're walking onto the field, and that other team, the other team that they're going to play, is going to get smashed.
Yeah. And if you are not controlling that, you have like 25 team members, but each of them are individual by himself. So if you don't track this, maybe you have like 30 to 40% of a team that is not on an optimum level, like you said, because of maybe the cortisol, stress, but also the impact of last training session or 2 days session before the game. And this is something that I studied like in the last few months. I questioned some topics about methodology, how we train, why we are doing things like we are doing them. Doing set pieces always on a Friday, doing medium spaces always on a Friday or Thursday. Something like this. Maybe there is something more about it, and to connect it with cortisol. Uh, have you checked or studied what kind of activities, or let's call it type of contractions or drills, are impacting the cortisol the most? Is it like high intensity decelerations in basketball or football drills that are, you know, gaining the more stress on the body, and you will be more tired because too much of this kind of activities before a game day? Uh,
Yeah, I mean, in short, to be not too specific, but it's basically high intensity. High intensity training raises cortisol, yeah, and specifically, I mean, this number is going to change, but it's, high intensity training greater than 45 minutes, right? That's where, and I'm sure that thing is movable based on how intense, the training is. But that's 45 minutes duration. High intensity training over 45 minutes spikes cortisol extremely high. And then to tamper that is challenging. It's very difficult. And that's why you either need time for recovery,
yeah,
or you need to implement strategies, nutritional strategies to reduce that. Or be strategic on your training sessions. If you need to train for an hour and a half, or 2 hours, you break the sessions into two separate sessions throughout the day instead of one longer session. That's another strategy as well.
yeah, it can be like used the timing window between those two sessions. You can use it for fueling, recovery, supplementation. Then you can come again. But if you have a good supplementation and recovery strategy, if you don't have it, maybe don't split it. Just do it a shorter session.
Yeah, and in a very
Yeah,
basic concept, carbohydrates lower cortisol levels, right? That's very
yeah,
simple, right? So, and there's an interesting study. They said they compared the athlete drinking water during training and the athlete drinking a sport drink during training. Okay. And what they noticed was the performance differences between the athlete drinking water and the athlete drinking a carbohydrate sport drink was very little to none, negligible in the training session. Okay. But what they noticed was a huge difference was in the recovery. Because carbohydrates are present during training, it tends to tamper cortisol levels lower. And so if your cortisol levels are lower post-training, then your recovery is optimized. So,
Yeah,
it's another
makes sense.
simple concept. And a lot of people are missing it. They're just missing these simple the technique and tools that
That's simple.
cumulatively they're missing it, and then they're wondering why their cortisol is so high and their repair, recovery, and growth is terrible.
It brings me then to competition day, like a competition day or a match day. Uh, and in football, the carbohydrates is something that is quite common before a game on a halftime setting. So, is there something that you are using with your athletes or recommending when it comes to game day fueling and game day strategies?
So game days is very different than training, as you know, because
Yeah,
because
it's the main day.
it's crazy, right? Because we all know we've all played before. We got practice players, and you have gamers, right? Guys that can show up and play spectacular in games. And then you guys, you have in practice hit the crossbar on a free kick. He'll do it 7 out of 10 times. Boom, boom, boom. In a game, he kicks the ball 13 feet past the post, not even close. Okay, so what is going on here? What's the difference? Okay, so this is managing
Yeah,
cortisol.
yeah,
This is managing stress, right? So it's very, very important that the stress system, central nervous system, is as calm as possible before the game. Okay, because there's called an arousal curve, and I showed that in Zadar, right? Where the arousal
yeah.
curve looks like this, right? Okay, so essentially, if you're not aroused, you're not going to perform well. You're not going to be paying attention. Okay, you have to be aroused to a certain degree in order for reaction time, brain processing speed, everything to be optimized. And then if you're overstimulated, then it's the same thing as being not aroused. Now you're overthinking, you're making critical judgment errors, your passing is not correct, the absorbing of the ball isn't there, your central nervous system is firing too high. Okay, so this is where there's huge mistakes. I see this at the professional level. Guys are drinking energy drinks before the game, loading on caffeine. These are all
Caffeine.
wrong strategies,
I rem
very, very
yeah, I
terrible
remember this.
strategies.
I remember this in the presentation in Zadar, like you mentioned, the curve and the coffee. You connected with caffeine, and can you tell us like more about it? What's your opinion on caffeine supplementation on a game day? Here it's still we are using it, recommended, before it. So what do you think about it?
Yeah, so I think, as you've played, we've all played sports competitively. Before a game, generally you're a little bit nervous. You're excited. Your energy levels are high. Your central nervous system is already firing very high. Okay, so all your energy systems before a game are optimized and ready to go. Okay, so where caffeine specifically can become a very powerful tool is not before the game. That actually can make you worse. Okay, it's at halftime, because after 45 minutes of play, your energy systems start to come down. You're burning up micronutrients, you're burning up, carbohydrates and proteins, and you're obviously a little bit fatigued after 45 minutes. You should be if you're giving what you have. Okay,
You should
this is
be
the time to implement caffeine at halftime.
halftime.
First time, and specifically, okay, really you should not be consuming caffeine of any kind 24 hours before the match, even ideally 48 hours before the match, because those caffeine
Wow,
receptors then become super, super sensitive.
sensitive.
And you really then need a lower dose, a very conservative low dose, okay, to get a maximum effect. Because again, let's go back to that arousal curve, okay? We want to stay optimized at that peak arousal curve, okay? We don't want to be over aroused, overstimulate our central nervous system. We want to stay in that perfect pocket, okay? And at halftime, the caffeine will bring you back into that perfect pocket. to optimize repair, recovery, and growth and decision making, right? We see it all the time in matches. Player has the ball and he makes a terrible decision making, or his pass is off, or the weight of the pass is off, off significantly. What is going on? Okay, that's overstimulation of central nervous system, where their system is firing too hard, too fast. And this is where the difference is, where coaches are looking at this and going, what is going on in practice? We run this thing, drill perfectly, everything happens, amazing. In games, nobody can, pick two passes together. And in many cases, it's overstimulation of central nervous system. So we need to, recognize this and use tools not to overstimulate in the beginning, and then to optimize in halftime, to the remainder of the game.
I just write down one question, but I will leave it for later, maybe for the end. I think it will be a good one. Uh, but let's stick to supplements because we now finish with, let's say, caffeine. We talk about it, and you mentioned the halftime, and there is something else on the market, and it's coming to Croatia, and we are starting using it. It's a beetroot juice, and they say that it increases stamina, you can run more, you recover faster. And what's your experience with that?
Yeah, beetroot juice is amazing. But certain factors have to be met in order for beetroot juice, to work. Okay, so essentially, why beetroot juice is very popular, it has something called natural nitrates, and nitrates convert to nitrites, which vasodilate. Okay, so simply put, if you have a bigger pipe, your arteries, if they dilate, the heart has to work less. You get more blood flow, more oxygen, more nutrients to the working muscles, and then more waste coming out. So anything that creates vasodilation is super important. Now, I was working with I will not say the team, but a very, very professional team in Europe, very high level, and they were using an L-arginine supplement for vasodilation to improve circulation, and it wasn't working. They weren't seeing any change in metrics. The athletes weren't, by GPS stuff, they weren't seeing any improvements, and so they're wondering, Paul, do you
What's
have a
happening?
better
Yeah.
do you have a better product that you would recommend than this? Because we don't know, it's not working. And I don't want to say I started laughing, but I'm like, listen, L-arginine is oxygen dependent. It needs oxygen to create vasodilation. Okay, so meaning you have to be in an aerobic state for L-arginine to work. When you move from aerobic to anaerobic, no oxygen, it doesn't work. When you need it the most, L-arginine doesn't work. Okay, especially so anaerobic. Obviously, we're in the sprinting component of. Let's talk about football. Okay, as opposed to beetroot juice and natural nitrates, they work in an anaerobic state. So without oxygen, uh, uh, beetroot juice actually maintains vasodilation. So that's the big difference between the two. And the other thing we've seen, and these are very technical information, but it's very, very important between
Yeah.
working and not working, is when you drink concentrated beetroot juice, the activation of nitrates, the nitrite starts in the normal flora of the mouth, the good bacteria in the mouth. Okay, that's where the major conversion starts, and then the remainder happens in the intestines. Provided that you have healthy GI, good gut bacteria, normal flora. Okay, now what we've seen is athletes who use a toothpaste that has antibacterial toothpaste, which is in almost every toothpaste out there. It destroys the normal flora, kills the good bacteria in the mouth, and that conversion doesn't happen. That's the same thing with mouthwashes. Studies have been done using that people who use mouthwashes with alcohol-based, etc., that destroy the bacteria in your mouth, they actually have higher blood pressure because you're not allowing the conversion of nitrates to nitrites, because those nitrates occur in all vegetables. Every vegetable
Yeah.
you consume has nitrates. Okay, it's just beetroot has one of the highest concentration of. So if your athlete is using an antibacterial toothpaste and mouthwash, and they're taking beetroot juice, it's not going to work. So these small details are very important in order for
But
it to work.
important details, these are. And what we can do if we cannot use, uh, okay, the mouthwash, this is mouthwash, this is something like we can not using it when we are on this kind of supplementation. But is there any like a protocol that you are using on when it comes to beetroot juice? You know, the time of day, how many days can we use it every day? What amount should we skip then this kind of uh, cleaning the teeth before it, or maybe do it later?
Yeah, so I mean, it's just consuming beets throughout the week is always an easy one. Where it's pickled beets, beet soup, any natural form of beets, work to just to maintain your nitrate levels throughout the week. But there is a company that I use and I really like. I don't have any affiliation with them, so I don't, this is just I like them, I use them.
Yeah,
They're
don't
they're
worry.
called yeah, they're called Beat It, and they're from England. It's a phenomenal. It's a 400 milligrams of nitrates in a 70 milliliter shot. It's phenomenal. It's standardized. It's measured. We know how much nitrates are in it. That's very important. If you're going to take any beetroot supplement, you have to know how much nitrates are contained in there. And otherwise, how do you measure the dose? You can't. Okay.
Yeah,
There was a huge company that reached out to me and said, "Hey, we want you to use our beetroot, powder capsule thing." And I said, "Yeah, sure. What's the standardized nitrate content in it?" And I got no response. I'm like, "Hey, what? Like, answer the question." They said, "We don't know." I mean, what
yeah,
do you mean we don't know? You know, and they gave me a range. Well, it's range. Finally, they answered the question. It ranges between this amount and this amount because their crops are varying in nitrate content, and they basically can't standardize it. So I mean, what's the point? If I'm in the metric business, I need to
yeah.
move the
Like you
athlete's
said,
metrics. It's measurable. So when I'm working with an athlete, I need to consciously say, okay, the average soccer player needs 400 milligrams, so one beetroot shot, basically, 6 days in a row leading up to competition day. You can actually, on competition day, you can take 800 milligrams of nitrates, or so two beat it shots. And the timing is 3 hours before. 3 hours before the match, that's when your blood nitrate levels will peak. Well, they technically peak 2.5 hours before, but it just gives you a little bit of a window, and it'll stay elevated for about 2 hours as well. Um, and depending, everybody's a little bit variable, but we're seeing improvements in research, up to about 16% improvement in endurance,
yeah,
which is
that's huge.
massive. It's massive. Even if it's 5%, it's massive, right? But
Yeah,
but
any kind of improvement, especially 15 or 16%, is uh, quite huge. And if it can help you, like on a match day, well, we should definitely consider it and test it to see.
Yeah, like, for instance, like a lot in the EPL, a lot of clubs are using it. I mean, I saw a random picture of the dressing room, and I believe it was in Stoke City, and you saw it in the background sitting on the shelf, right? There was that particular product, right? But it's being used, and if this is the first time you've heard of, beetroot juice or concentrated beetroot juice in sport, I mean, there's a lot of other things out there that are giving huge advantages. And your coach, as a coach, you're wondering, why is this team running through us? Why are we getting just overrun by a team that's physically superior and faster and stronger? And some of it, I guarantee you, is the nutritional strategies, supplement strategies that they're using.
Yeah, it's definitely a big piece of success and performance. We cannot neglect it. We should definitely, you know, study the research, check what is there on the market, what can be beneficial for us. Like you said, it's a business, it's a yeah, let me check it. It's a metric business, so we should definitely measure it. And let's say that you're working with a team that maybe doesn't have so big uh, budget for supplementation strategy, but you can help them with some nutrition advices. And what what will be there to recommend them that they can eat on a match day or to put more frequently in their habits if they want to have, well, not similar, but that if they can have results close to that when we are talking about supplementation. Like, I know one of the answers that we discussed a few times, but what else is there?
There's three things that are very, very simple that are very impactful. Okay, one we just talked about is beetroot juice, or beets, right? The second one, which may not be very common, is sauerkraut. Sauerkraut is one of the most testosterone enhancing foods out there. And essentially, you look at population groups or countries that consume sauerkraut, consistently. There's a reason why they're big, strong people, right? It's not a coincidence. Food, especially testosterone, expresses genetic potential, right? It expresses your DNA. So if you have strong genetic traits, then testosterone will express those traits. And you need foods that promote testosterone production or allows the testosterone to remain elevated. And essentially how sauerkraut works is it supports, very healthy, good bacteria production. Good bacteria production is directly connected to testosterone production, serotonin, all kinds of neurotransmitters. The gut, we know, is the second brain, right? It controls basically everything.
Yeah, we now
So
have a lot
so
of research that are going in that direction, and yeah, it's confirmed.
So you want to promote a very healthy gut bacteria, gut normal flora. So there's huge repair, recovery, and growth performance benefits from doing that. Sauerkraut will enhance that. And additionally, sauerkraut supports the liver to get rid of excessive estrogens. So this is very important because estrogen and testosterone are inversely proportional. So as estrogen is high, testosterone is low, and vice versa. So if you can clear out excessive estrogens throughout the body naturally through sauerkraut, then testosterone tends to remain elevated. And then we know if your testosterone is naturally high, these are obvious things: repair, recovery, and growth, muscle growth, strength, fat loss, power, body to weight ratio, all those things improve. And so it's important that an athlete would consume sauerkraut on a daily basis, as much as they really could or can, right? And then the third one, the last one, is the sun, right? The sun is free, right? And
One,
it and,
yeah,
and it
still
produces
is.
a lot of amazing things, right? So we know vitamin D, production. Now they're saying that vitamin D is not a vitamin; it's an actual hormone. So that's the common belief now. And if you can get your vitamin D levels high enough, it just the cascade of repair, recovery, and growth is insane. What vitamin D does. So as much sun as you can get safely is very important. The sun, we know, creates vasodilation. It creates healing of the body for injuries, for cancers, for recovery. Getting your vitamin D from the sun is always the best, but you can also get it in a supplementation perspective, which is very inexpensive. And if you're taking vitamin D3, you always have to couple it with vitamin K2 because D3 can stimulate the release of calcium, and you want K2. K2 is a transporter, so it'll grab onto calcium and then drive it into places where you need it, which is bone, essentially. So the two should always be taken together. Now, when you get supplements, you find them with vitamin D3 K2 combination. And personally, I'll just tell you what I do. I do 10,000 IU's of vitamin D3 K2 every day. That's my dosing. In the summertime, obviously, I take less because I try to
Keep the sun.
get in the sun. And
Yeah,
an interesting, on the last point, an interesting point of there's been studies showing out there that it's better to be out in the sun without sunglasses. And the reason is your the eyes tell the brain and the body what's going on, right? It's a
better
feedback.
absorption.
Exactly. Okay. So if the sun is strong and you're not wearing sunglasses, and the eyes are sensing that strong UV rays, the strong sun rays, it will then summon antioxidants to the skin in preparation for the high intensity sunlight coming in. So the body is now preparing for that sun coming in. If you wear sunglasses that are filtering or lowering that intensity of the sun, then the brain is not preparing the skin for that intense sun. And then you can have sunburns and negative effects happening from the sun. So it's kind of ironic, but and I've tested this. I've been doing this for the last few years. and I find that my skin reacts way, way, way better to less burns, less, I mean, I'm fairly, light skinned. So, but
Yeah.
I found that it definitely does work. So small point, but important. So three things would be beets, sauerkraut, and vitamin D3 or sun.
Vitamin D. Yeah. This is just something that I wanted to mention one more time, but you already did it. So those three things are quite easy to use. We don't need much, and it can be basically a protocol for everyone, on a daily level. And I would like to go more to the last question of our. Well, we will see how this question will go to our talk, but we talked mostly about, again, central nervous system, how he is sensitive, how we can oversensitive it during the preseason and in season. But when it comes to off-season training, and we need to recover our athletes, how we can recover that sensitivity, to of receptors and to recover them faster, not just the body, the muscles, but also central nervous system on the responses that it's constantly. I look at it like on a switch to turn light on and off. When we are constantly turning on and off, this is something that we are doing preseason, in season, and it starts to be less sensitive to stimulus. And in off season, should we do something to again provoke that sensitivity that our athletes come faster, stronger? Should we give them more rest? Should we give them more training, different type of training, supplementation?
Yeah, so I'll answer it from two fronts. For one from a training perspective, from my experience, and then one from a nutritional perspective. On
Okay,
on
cool. Yeah,
on the off season, I like uh, to train much harder, higher intensity, as intense and hard as you can, but with more rest, much, much more rest, adding 2, 3 days between training sessions
yeah. So you
to
mean days, training session, then rest, not rest between sets and something like this. So training session, rest 3 days, then again hard session, then rest 3 days. Okay.
yeah, that is phenomenal for strength. Wow. You want to get an athlete stronger? Oh, give them the time to recover, right? We know, and it's this recovery too. It's a CNS recovery, right? Because we know part of strength is not the muscular contraction. It's the production of the neural drive from the brain, right? It's like an internet cable, right? Your brain is
Yeah.
your brain is generating electricity. It's current, right? It's electrical current that is driving into muscle to make that contraction. So if your CNS system is not recovered, that electrical current, it's a measurable voltage, okay? You can measure it. It's not strong enough, it's not powerful enough. And that's why we see in strength gains always at the beginning of any program, it's not the muscle growth, it's the amount of electrical current that is able to generate from the brain into the muscle. And in a morbid sense, we know this, the electric chair, that's how it kills you, right? Is because it's the electricity that makes every muscle contract. So
Yeah.
electricity and the production of electrical current is very, very important. That's why sodium is very important. Athletes should keep their salt levels very high, not low, because the body can process excess salt easily. Just as long as you're drinking enough water, it'll flush it out through urine, sweat, feces. It doesn't matter. So that's super important. Keep your salt intake very high. And the last one, which I think is on the nutrition perspective, which is incredibly powerful, probably the most powerful thing that you can do in the entire nutrition space and supplement space, is sodium bicarbonate. Sodium bicarbonate is not used. It's probably like 0.1% of the athletes are using it right now in terms of effective dosing. And I'm gonna plug myself a little bit here, but I'm gonna be coming out launching shortly with a very, very advanced sodium bicarbonate supplement that's going to basically break everybody's personal records within one dose. I mean, the recovery is going to be insane. We're gonna, you started the show off by saying, about a coach was saying, if we don't have 72 hours between games, we're not playing. Okay, that was Ancelotti, and And with proper sodium bicarbonate loading, the recovery is 24 hours and fully recovered, because you're reducing the acidic load by 80%. Never mind the power output.
So 24 hours recovery after a game on a, is that on a hormonal level, central nervous system level, or a muscle repair level?
It's on all levels, because very
Yeah.
simply put, okay, so when you train maximally, okay, we know the thing that is the rate limiting step, why you can't sprint forever. Okay, why can we not maintain top speed on a sprint, right? Why do we start to slow down, right? That's, you see that in the 400 and 800 meters. Okay, it's simple. Lactic acid. Once lactic acid hits a certain level, it shuts the entire system down. Okay, so muscle contraction goes down, force generation goes down, endurance goes down, everything just starts going down very, very rapidly as acid levels. It's technically hydrogen ions is what's happening. Okay, so if you have a system that can buffer that hydrogen ion as it's being produced, you can maintain top speed for much longer period of time. And then if you can, and let's say in a football match of 90 minutes, you're producing huge amounts of hydrogen ions or huge amounts of lactic acid. And it's the lactic acid buildup in the body that takes the 72 hours to recover. You need to clear that lactic acid out, because the acidity, again, acidity is obviously inflammation. So let's talk about a soccer player, football player plays a 90-minute match. Now he's going to bed. Okay. He's got all this lactic acid sitting in his body. Okay. And acidity, we know, is inflammation. Inflammation creates vasoconstriction of anything, right? You pull a hamstring, what does your hamstring do? It tightens, okay? So
Yeah.
inflammation is a trigger for contraction. So if you have systemically high hydrogen ions or high acidity post-match, what is your arteries doing at night? They're constricting, okay? Because of the acidity. And well, how does the body respond naturally to get rid of inflammation? It releases cortisol. Cortisol is an anti-inflammatory. So now at night, your body's releasing cortisol to combat the acidity
Two things.
from
Yeah.
right from the match. Okay. And now cortisol, we know, we talked about earlier, is a disruptive hormone. It drops melatonin. Now you're not into deep sleep. Now you're not recover, repair, or growth is impeded. And again, testosterone in the morning will be low. Okay. As opposed to taking high dose efficacious bicarbonate supplement, okay, which our formula now is you're able to ingest 16, 18 grams without issue, no GI problems, okay, get the
This was
efficacious
a
dose up.
problem. Yeah,
Right.
because of the dosage. Now you with this you solved the problem of the dosage of using it.
That's the number one thing, is because if you try to take baking soda or sodium bicarbonate and took 14 or 16 grams in a glass of water, and you try to drink that, you're going to throw up, you're going to puke, GI, stomach disturbances. You can't do it. So we've created a formulation in our capsule that bypasses all that, opens up into the small intestine, and bypasses all the side effects. So now you can clinically and effectively get the dose up to whatever you need based on body weight. And then it allows the athlete to run faster, run longer periods of time. And that's why, again, I mentioned earlier with my son Philip, who was playing Division I soccer in the U.S. As a wingback, he can't stop sprinting. There's no fatigue, all 90 minutes. And then in the morning when he wakes up, he's like, Dad, it's like I didn't play. And this is not just with my son; it's with any it's 25 years of research behind it. So this is nothing. This is not new information. What's new is the delivery system that I've created to be able to absorb into the body at the high levels. And then just to tie it up is, if at before bed, if you're taking bicarbonate, you're reducing the inflammation on the endothelial linings of the arteries. Okay, so if you reduce the inflammation of the arterial walls, what does the arteries do? They dilate. And when you
Yeah.
have dilation, okay, you have blood flow to the
More
brain,
blood flow,
kidney, liver.
oxygen, and everything else. Yeah.
Exactly. And then because there is no inflammation, because the bicarbonate is taking out the inflammation, guess what? Guess what your body does not need to release at night? Cortisol. So then cortisol is suppressed, melatonin remains high,
Melatonin.
And
And the
now you
core
see,
circle is again okay. Yeah.
yeah. So it's going to be a complete game changer when it starts coming out. Um, for the athletes and teams that use it, it's going to be, I mean, basically, it's probably 20 times more powerful than creatine in terms of performance gains. It will be the most important supplement in the history of all supplements ever made.
I'm definitely looking forward to see what the research will show and to see the impact of the supplement if it will do everything that you mentioned, control the cycle of melatonin, cortisol, testosterone, improve performance, then this can definitely be a game changer for a lot of sports and not just sports, but also people doing daily jobs and activities. Today, staying let's say healthy and less stressful, it's not easy like maybe before. So these kind of things can help you in a daily work. There is always a topic like um, burnouts of coaches, burnouts of physical coaches. This is also a important topic to talk, but it's maybe for some different episode. But also, it can be beneficial not just for athletes, maybe for people, in a everyday life. But Paul, I can stay here like talking the whole day because this topic is quite interesting, and you notice that I have like 2.5 pages written with the questions and possible scenarios. But I think we came to an end. We can do this definitely one more time to go even deeper in some aspects. Maybe after you've done the research with the supplement, we can see what happened after that. And I would like to wrap it up and to say, besides this project that you are doing right now, is there anything else that you are being up to? And if someone would like to talk with you, where they can reach out to you? Is it a social media? Is it a email?
Yeah, I mean, they could reach out to me on Instagram, which is Dr. Biondich, Dr. My last name Biondich, or they can reach out through email, pbiondich@yahoo.com anytime, But either one works, and happy to answer any questions or protocols or go into anything deeper strategies, So yeah.
Thanks, Paul. And also, you can find this episode soon at Ultrax Science Hub. And again, different topics will be there. And if some of you reach out to us, Paul, I can contact you if someone send us an email about some questions. Okay, cool. Well, yeah, thank you one more time for this episode. I wish you all the best with your future projects and hope that we do something like this again.
Thank you, Marco. Thanks for the opportunity. And I look forward to working with Ultrax. It's an amazing system. So thank you.
Thank you, Paul.